listening to The Stanley Angler, and my daddy's the host.
All right, well, special thanks to my sweetheart for the introduction, and welcome to The Sustainable Angler, the podcast where we discuss the intersection of fishing, conservation, and sustainability. I'm your host, Rick Crawford. In this episode, I'm joined by Charlotte Ward, the Communications and Media Manager at Citizens Climate Lobby, an organization often described as the best lobbyist money can't buy. CCL empowers volunteers across the country to meet with members of Congress, build bipartisan support for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and advance meaningful climate solutions like expediting clean energy permitting. Charlotte and I talk about the power of storytelling, why action is the antidote to despair, and how spending time in nature can help us recharge and get back in the fight for a healthier planet. She also shares how switching to an EV and installing solar panels has helped her family save money while cutting their carbon footprint, and offers practical advice for anyone who wants to raise their voice through a letter to the editor or local media. Finally, we discuss CCL's upcoming fall virtual conference, Sharper Than Ever, CCL's Next Chapter, happening November 14th and 15th, followed by Virtual Lobby Week, November 17th through the 21st, 2025. It's an opportunity for anyone, anywhere to take climate action and be heard. Let's dive into how ordinary people are doing extraordinary things to protect our planet, right here on The Sustainable Angler. The Sustainable Angler is available anywhere you listen to podcasts and is also airing Saturdays at 2 p.m. on Charleston's first and only community-supported radio station, OWN Radio 96.3 FM. If you like what you're hearing, an absolutely free way to show your support is by leaving the show a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. This episode of The Sustainable Angler is brought to you by Emerger Strategies and A New Earth Project, the sustainability initiative of Atlantic Packaging. Fly fishing taught me that learning to read a river for trout isn't just about finding fish. It's about understanding an entire ecosystem. At Emerger Strategies, we see this as a perfect metaphor for systems thinking. Each element of the river, from water quality and habitat to the aquatic insects that transform from emergers to adult mayflies, plays a crucial role. And we understand that businesses also play a critical role in the health of the planet. Measuring and improving your company's sustainability performance is the same as protecting your home waters. And responsible business practices ensure that our rivers remain clean, habitats are preserved, and biodiversity thrives for generations to come. Because when you protect what you love, you're not just protecting the planet, you're building a brand that stands for something. At Emerger Strategies, we help your business apply this holistic approach. By integrating sustainability, you not only conserve natural resources, but also create a thriving ecosystem for your business and the planet that you love. Visit our website at emergerstrategies.com to learn more, and let's protect what we love together.
We set out with the New Earth Project to really start a movement.
It's a global coalition of people who are deeply concerned and want to accelerate the transition away from problematic packaging to more sustainable solutions.
Our entire value proposition was built on helping companies package things better. We were doing sustainability before sustainability was cool. We just called it packaging optimization. And packaging optimization really is about using less. And we built our whole business on that. You know, people send us their products, their goods, and we help them design packaging systems and solutions for the least possible cost, utilizing the least amount of material. Use less is always the right answer.
And that's what I see with companies like a New Earth Project, is it's like, we're just trying to create solutions for big companies and small, that makes it easier for them, cheaper for them, whatever it is, and then has less impact. Not just trying to tell people you should have less impact and making the choice forced on them. Like, make it better for everybody, and it'll make it better for the whole world.
We see the problem, and we are with you.
Yeah, so Citizens Climate Lobby is a grassroots, non-partisan organization. We are a non-profit. We empower everyday folks to feel confident in going to meet with Congress to talk about policy that would reduce emissions. So we like to say we're the best lobbyists that money can't buy, because we're those everyday folks in the constituencies, in the states, appealing to our lawmakers to do more to address this issue. So we have chapters all over the US. We have some in South Carolina. I actually lead the Greenville chapter in upstate South Carolina, but we have them in every state. We have 2 lobby days a year where we go to DC in person in the summer, and we meet with members of Congress, and we talk to them about bipartisan policy that will do all kinds of things like help clean energy, will ensure we have healthy forests, will speed up clean energy permitting reform, all those kind of things. So we're constantly thinking about solutions that will help us to address climate change as quickly as possible. And my job personally is, so I volunteered for quite a few years before I joined staff at CCL. So I've been passionate about this issue for a long time. My background's journalism. So I joined CCL staff 4 years ago, and I basically use my expertise from being a journalist for so long to guide our volunteers all over the US with how they can create media for advocacy. So they're writing press releases, they're pitching to journalists, they're writing opinion content, so op-eds and letters to the editor. And I'm there, I'm volunteer facing. So I train volunteers, I give them guidance, I create resources for them, and I'm here to just help them whenever they need help. So that's what I specifically do. But obviously in my volunteer role with CCL Greenville in South Carolina, I'm kind of doing all the different types of advocacy. So I'm getting people to join our chapter. I'm helping to prepare them for lobby meetings. We do tabling, so we're out in our communities, farmers markets, all kinds of different things, meeting people, getting them to sign constituent forms. And we also meet with we call it grass top. So it's like community leaders and trusted messengers in the community, people that we know our members of Congress will listen to. We want to get them in front of our members of Congress so that they can hear all kinds of perspectives and see how they have things in common with these people who are talking to them about their concerns.
And so CCL's kind of, mission is all about just building this political will for climate solutions. And maybe you kind of mentioned some of these, but what does that actually look like? Like it's getting citizens to talk to Congress about climate solutions. You mentioned like permitting. Are there any areas where y'all sort of focus your efforts?
Yeah, so it changes depending on the different lobby days we have. So for a long time, we advocated for a price on carbon that would help across the entire economy. If you put a fee on pollution, you price pollution, then businesses are going to want to move away from pollution models. I mean, it's that simple. So we wanted to get a price on pollution, a carbon fee, and then a dividend that's returned to households. So if you put the price on pollution and then the businesses that are paying it then try to push that onto the consumer, if you take the fee from the price on pollution and give it back to the consumers, to everyday households as a dividend, then it makes sure that people are whole. So that traditionally has been our kind of longest policy area. Right now, there isn't a bill in Congress that has been introduced that supports that. So we a few years ago, we decided that we had the capacity to take on other solutions too. So why not do some other key areas that will help to reduce carbon emissions? So we started to do clean energy permitting reform. Right now, transmission lines for clean energy can take up to 10 years to build. So it's like, we don't have 10 years. We know that climate change is here and we need to solve it. So by speeding up clean energy permitting in a thoughtful way, so making sure that communities still get to have their input, that you're following the correct kind of different procedures to get to the point where this infrastructure is being made. But like speeding that process up is just going to mean that we get more clean energy on the grid quicker, which has so many benefits. I mean, we've seen how energy prices are just going up. So it's clear with the growth of like AI and data centers and our needs that we need to have more reliable domestic energy. So why not improve the time for permitting so that we can ensure that that energy gets on the grid quicker? So that's one area. Another thing we have been advocating for recently is a bill called the Fix Our Forests Act. And that's actually coming up in the Senate Agriculture Committee in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be discussed. That bill is making sure that we are managing our forests in a way that is kind of protecting them, protecting us. So we're thinking about restoring forest health, strengthening wildfire resilience, protecting communities from dangerous smoke and flames. And so this bill is also a big appeal for us is that it's bipartisan. We want bipartisan policy. We need to have people advocating for it from both sides of the aisle because that's durable. If we just do this back and forth all the time with partisan policy, you see what happens. It just one leadership brings it in, the other leadership gets rid of it. Even sometimes if it makes sense because it becomes so partisan, which doesn't help any of us. So we are always trying to look for that bipartisan policy that has an appeal to both sides of the aisle. So right now our volunteers are working to advocate for the Fix Our Forests Act. They're calling Congress, they're specifically doing outreach to states where there are senators on the Senate Agriculture Committee. That's not to say that the rest of us aren't doing it too. Like I don't have senators on the Ag Committee, but I can still tell my senators that forest health is important to me. I saw the Table Rock fire far too close to home recently. So kind of making sure that our forests are healthy and that we have resilience when it comes to wildfires is really important. So that's what our volunteers are doing. We have a lobby day coming up the week of November 16th, which is a virtual one. So we go to DC in June in person, but we also have an online lobby day, which is great because it means that we can get more people to come. People who perhaps can't make the trip to DC can actually come on Zoom with us and do these virtual calls where we introduce these offices to everyday folks, to trusted messengers. We'll have foresters on there. We'll have farmers. We'll have people who work in clean energy. We'll have grandparents. We'll have like high school kids. So it's kind of showing the broad support for acting on climate across, all kinds of ages and parts of society.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, right? Because it obviously climate change isn't just going to affect certain people; it affects all of us. So you mentioned working with these volunteers, whether it's for this virtual lobby day coming up on November 16th, and you mentioned everyone from high school students to retirees. What have you seen for or what inspires people to get involved, and how do you keep them engaged in such a long-term challenge like climate change?
Yeah, so it's hard because it's such a huge issue that I think the mistake a lot of people make is they think they can't do anything. They just think it's so overwhelming that they almost like paralyzed by the issue. But we can do something, and that's what I always want to try and drive home to people. It would be a really sad situation if we had climate change and we had no solutions. We do have solutions.
Right.
We just need to like fast track them and do more of them, and the solutions really help our lives. So it can be hard sometimes to and I think that the fact that we do have solutions does inspire people to get engaged. But I also think people get engaged because they hit a point where they're like, I have to do something. I keep seeing these climate impacts get worse. I keep seeing extreme weather, and it used to be something that seemed far away, and now it's kind of on my doorstep, whether it's that you have Hurricane Helene hit your community, as many of us in upstate South Carolina did last year, or whether it's having to keep your kids inside because of wildfire smoke. I think more and more people are realizing the impacts, and they're worried, and they want to do something. And we always say, like, action is the antidote to despair. So I really believe that. Like everyone, I get really overwhelmed by climate change sometimes. And that's the point where I'm going to go out in nature and take a walk with my family, take a hike, and just marvel at waterfalls or forests or whatever, and it's, I think that's the key to like long-term action. You do it, and then you do something for yourself, because how can you take action if you're feeling anxious and worn down by it all the time? Life goes on. Life is wonderful, and we've got to embrace it. So let's embrace it, but at the same time, just continually show up to create action that will help.
Yeah, that's great advice too. It's the same thing, and anytime I spend time in nature, whether it's hiking or fly fishing, surfing, whatever it is, it sort of helps renew me personally. And then I'm more inspired to continue the fight. You're like, okay, yeah, this is important. That sort of, I think, is a critical part of all this. I interviewed, I don't know if you know Susan Johnson, you might, but she has this organization, Nature at Work, where they're taking people like at work and out in nature, right, while they're at work. And she threw out a stat that was pretty mind-blowing to me, that in today's society, we spend 92% of our time indoors. And it's like, wow, like, yeah, like people are really like getting disconnected from nature.
And there's lots of studies like that. I mean, there's studies that show that we don't even know the words to describe nature anymore. Like we're kind of losing those words. And we do need to make time for it, because believe me, if you just go out there for 15 minutes, you're going to understand why you like being out there. And it kind of connects with so many other things. Like it's great for mental health. It can kind of like slow, you slow down, and you're actually, things like your blood pressure reduces, it helps in all the ways. You're getting exercise, that helps. But also it's great for children because it gives them a sense of empathy. And there's so many studies that show just being outside for kids, like even having regular recess, like more recesses than one a day, helps kids to learn. So I think the benefits they just go on and on.
Yeah, 100% agree. So I'm going to kind talk a little bit about, kind of media and storytelling for climate action, because that kind of seems like that's part of what you do, right?
Yeah.
And you're helping to train volunteers to share their stories. And so my question is, why do you think storytelling is such an effective tool for climate advocacy?
I think it just makes it real for folks. So if you're speaking from the heart, you're telling a story of your own experience. There's lots of evidence that people can really relate to that. But particularly with climate change, even hearing a story that, say, it's not my story, but I'm telling you about a story involving like my family in England to do with climate change, that still would have an impact on the person I'm telling, because it brings it home and it makes it real. So you're right, storytelling is such a huge part of the work that I do. So this is what I'm always trying to tell our volunteers. So I do these letter to the editor workshops once a month, and we'll often have someone who's very green to climate advocacy show up for these workshops, and they're like, oh, I don't know what to write a letter about. And I say, tell me, why are you here tonight? Why do you care about this issue? And then they'll start to tell you some reason of why they're concerned about climate change or something that's happened to them. Like they got their home was affected by a hurricane when they were a kid, or they have a connection to another country and that country is really getting impacted by climate change. So once they sort of make that connection in their mind, they're like, oh yeah, of course. And then they write about it. And those are often the pieces that get published because they're really compelling, personal stories and speaking from the heart are the most important things you can do. Like sometimes we want to reel off all the facts and figures and tell people why they're wrong, but like that just turns people off. The best thing you can do is just say, well, from my perspective, my dad is Australian and I've visited like the Great Barrier Reef and it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. And I really want my kids to have that experience one day. I want to be able to take them to Australia and get them to see the amazing coral reefs. And right now, if we don't address climate change, they're just going to be a shell of what they used to be. It's just coral reefs are really being affected. Or I might talk about how I went to England a couple of summers ago, and England is not a warm country where you need air conditioning normally. And we were having this heat wave and there were actually wildfires in England, which just blew my mind because I've never known that in my entire life to see like these wildfires popping up all over the place, including one very near where my brother lived. But while we were there, my kids were just so hot that I had to like strip them down. And then I was like, had a fan on and I like a cool cloth on them to try and cool them down because 11 o'clock at night, it was so warm and with no air conditioning. And so I think whenever you talk about those personal stories, that's how it becomes real for people. And it doesn't seem like you have an agenda because you're kind of talking from the heart.
Well, so I'll tell you what I'm seeing here in Charleston, if we're going to talk about real stories, right, is my daughter, and I've told this on other podcasts, but I think it is important. That's why I tell the story a lot. I have gotten rerouted several times on sunny days in downtown Charleston because it was flooded. Rerouted to drop my daughter off at her daycare at this church downtown. So you have like, oh, wow, like this is sea level rise is quite literally happening in real time. So you see it there. I have seen it in tide charts. So whenever you fish for redfish, which I love to do, we get full moons and new moons. We get an extra foot of water. The redfish get in the grass. Their tails stick out of the water. And you sight cast to them. You can see the fish and you cast to them and hopefully they eat and that's why you're out there. It's fun. But what I have noticed anecdotally is that even factoring in the wind, if the wind's blowing in from the north, tides can tend to be a little bit higher because it's pushing more water in. But even on days when it's not, I fish several flats frequently, so I'm pretty intimate with how they work and what's normal. The tides are often bigger than what the tide chart is calling for. So there's more water than supposed to be there. And then the other thing that I'll say that I have seen in Charleston is that now we're starting to get shifting migratory patterns of fish. So now snook, which historically are caught in Florida, are now being caught in Charleston. And so you're starting to see these things happen, and that's happening in different areas of the country. Tarpon migrate up the East Coast every summer, and historically their northernmost range was kind of the Chesapeake Bay, and now they're being caught in Rhode Island. And so those are things that it's like, this is all the, I don't have to be convinced that it's happening, but here are real stories of like what you hear. It's like, oh, there's going to be shifts in migratory patterns. There's going to be sea level rise. There's going to be an increase in storms, and we're seeing it play out in real time. So it's So I agree. I think that's really important for anyone listening. If you're going to perhaps get engaged with Citizen Climate Lobby, or you want to write an opinion piece, right? Sounds like that's the best way to start, is to say, here's what I'm seeing. Like, this is what I'm witnessing.
And that real life experience, because it's like climate change is a threat multiplier. So it can be hard to put your finger on it, but like it makes all those things worse. So it just kind of creates threats with so many of the things that we love. It creates threats for the people we love, the places we love. And the best thing you can do, like, I'm glad you tell that story in Charleston, because that's the best thing you can do. Like, talking about climate change is so important, because there's a real disconnect with the number of people who are concerned about climate change and and what they think other people's concern is. So people really underestimate how much the folks around them are also concerned. So if we talk about it, then that's how we move towards action, if we're actually talking about it. And I grew up sailing in France, because my dad was sailing crazy. My dad started building a boat when I was born, and then finished this yacht when I was 8 years old. I think that's very convenient that he had a crying baby and he went off to build a boat. But anyway, that's what he did. So all my summers as a kid, as a teenager, was spent sailing, and we would sail around Brittany in France, and my dad would put out a line behind the boat. I think it's called trolling. I had to look this up. Yeah. And I think it's a paravane that you put down. I did not know the terminology. I was like, the bit of wood that you put, you throw out behind the boat and it goes down and then it comes up when there's a mackerel. Anyway, so we would fish and we would get mackerel, and it would be literally our dinner that night would be mackerel, so fresh from the ocean as we're sailing. And that's kind of a core childhood memory for me. And I've been reading that, mackerel's moving north because of the changes in the ocean, the temperatures. So you see it everywhere when you actually stop and pay attention. It's kind of everywhere. And we have a choice. We can just kind of shrug about that, or we could actually choose to do something to, as I say, go back to the point that we have solutions. We just need to persuade our members of Congress that enough of us care and that they should do it. And that's often it. People say, what can I do? I'm busy. If you're busy, just make a call or send an email. You can go to the CCR website. It's cclusa.org, and we have like calls to action on it. You can put in your zip code. It gives you some wording. You can alter the wording. You can send it off to your members of Congress. It tells you, it automates to your members of Congress. So you could do that in 5 minutes. And that might not seem like a lot, but if we all did that on a weekly basis, then we're taking this issue up. It's moving up on the desk, because every day those congressional offices, they're tallying up the number of calls they get about which issues. Sometimes I go to these offices and I say, do you get many calls about climate change? And they're like, not really. So, but most of us are concerned. So there's a lot of things to be concerned about, but let's just add climate change to that, because we're seeing the bigger picture of everything that it affects, everything we love that it affects, and just make that effort to make that call. So if someone's listening and they're really time strapped, that's something that they could do, and it would take them 5 minutes. Just do it once a month. That really makes a difference. The other thing is, we have a lot of anglers, like outdoor loving folks probably listening to this podcast. You are just the sort of people we want to come to these meetings, to like talk to these members of Congress, to make it real for them. So by all means, please, if you have time, just come join us. We'll like invite you to these lobby meetings in November. You can do it from your living room at home, and you can kind of make a difference. So I hope some folks will take me up on that.
I'll take you up on that.
Good. Yeah, I was going to ask you, Rick. I want you on my call, actually.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. Yeah, that's one of the things. I went and in April, I went and lobbied in DC for the first time with the Ocean Conservancy, and we were talking about climate change and its impact on our fisheries. And we had anglers from all up in the East Coast and the Pacific Northwest in particular. And I mean, everyone is sharing their stories, where it's like, here's like, hey, we're catching mahi off the coast of Washington. Like, that's a warm water offshore species. Like, we've never seen them here before, and now catching them. So then that leads into, okay, well, we really need full funding for NOAA from a understanding the health of our fisheries perspective. Like, each state can understand their fishery or their general region, but you also, in addition to that, you need someone who's looking at it from the big picture and saying, okay, like, we need to think about limits here or there, because here's what we're seeing in this broader picture. Like, the fish don't have state lines. They don't pay attention to that stuff. So it's like, if you're not prepared to manage a fishery, what happens when new species of fish are coming in to your state and there's no limits and you wipe them out, for example? It's like the tragedy of the commons. It's like, oh, wow, now we have snook. Like, well, what if the future of snook was dependent on our ability to manage them sustainably as they're entering our waters, because maybe those are some of the best breeders, or whatever the reason is. Those are some of the strongest fish, and we wipe them out because we didn't have the right management in place.
Yeah.
So I'll say from my own personal experience, I'm excited to do this virtual and otherwise with y'all, but it's really, that was a long-winded way for saying it's very empowering to communicate. And I would say also respectfully and calmly explaining and sharing your story. I'm just saying, I'm just telling you what I'm seeing. I'm worried about it. I want to be able to, if I'm lucky to have grandkids, I want to take them red fishing. I want to, do the things that I was brought up doing and pass those traditions on. And that is concerning to me, that things are changing so quickly. And so when you do that and actually meet with some of your elected officials or their staffers or whoever will meet with you, but they are paying attention and they're listening. And that's the thing. It's to your point, is the more people tell those stories and they hear about it, then it becomes more and more on their radar of going, okay,
Yeah.
is this, we need to be, what are we doing about this?
It's real to them. And, we've had lobby days where we go and we talk about a bill that we would like a member of Congress to sign on for. And then the following week, say we have like 5 offices that have signed on to that bill. So
Wow.
we really do see how those meetings have an impact. And sometimes I've been in meetings with congressional staffers. They're so busy that they're not always getting all the right information about things. And I've been able to provide them with studies or information or breakdowns of an issue or a policy that they wouldn't have had if they hadn't had that meeting with us. And, they've expressed gratitude for that. So you underestimate like how much impact you can have. And it's very different from the sound bites and the like toxic social media we see. It doesn't matter for us if we would vote for that person or not. Like our whole ethos is we invite everyone, we talk to everyone, we show up, we express gratitude. We always find something that we're grateful for to tell that office. And we listen. So we don't go in there just trying to like convince them of something. We express thoughtfully why we want them to do something. And then we listen to what they have to say and get feedback so we can take that and work with it in the future. Like we can think about, they're saying that hearing from this part of the economy would help. Well, let's work out how we can find folks from that sector to come to our meeting next time. So it always feels like very productive, and you usually walk away feeling really good. Like it's a very empowering experience to do it.
Yeah, they my friend at Ocean Conservancy, this, I don't know, I don't think this is his saying, but I'll give him credit for it anyway. But if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So it's like, you really have to be there and advocate, or other people's interests are going to trump yours.
Yeah. And also like something that our former executive director would always say is like, okay, this work is hard and it takes a really long time. And sometimes you do feel like giving up. So we can give up and we can decide not to go have that meeting. But then the paid lobbyists aren't going to give up. They're going to still be there. Like the fossil fuel interest is still going to be showing up. Yeah. So we can't give up because our voices are really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. Well, that's awesome. So let's see. So you mentioned earlier like sound bites and maybe it's climate misinformation, but how does Citizen Climate Lobby approach communicating about climate in a way that bridges divides rather than deepens them?
That's a really good question. So I think what we're thinking about all the time is building bridges and meeting people where they are. And I experience this in real life whenever I do a table somewhere. So I might go to a hunting and fishing day event and I have a table with CCL, or I might, I've just this weekend, I was tabling at Water Mission's Walk for Water event in upstate South Carolina. And a lot of people are like-minded, but you do get people to the table who will tell you that climate change is not a real thing, or that they don't think it's an issue, or they're kind of suspicious that the solutions that are going to be thrust upon them are going to stop them from doing what they want to do. Like it's going to tell them they can't eat meat, or they can't fly to Hawaii on vacation, or they have to walk to work, or they can't use their air conditioning. There's very real disinformation that's kind of what you have to sacrifice to solve climate change. So often I will just say, no, I'm totally with you. Like you shouldn't have to give up anything, and you shouldn't even have me tell you that you have to be a good person and you have to do what I tell you because it's the right thing to do. Like,
Right.
you should, it's fair enough that you want to be told why it helps your life. So I will then just talk personally. So I'll say, I got an electric vehicle and I used to pay 3 times as much for my gas every month. It's like a third of what I used to pay to use this electric vehicle. And then just last week, I got solar panels on my roof, which is really exciting. And I have storage for it. And the reason I have that is because during Hurricane Helene, I lost my power for like 2 weeks. And it was really hard. Like, I'm a mum of 2 young kids, and like just trying to like have family life and do all the things with no power for 2 weeks is so hard. So this storage will mean that if I lose power now, the solar is just going to help me to like have energy in my house. So I'll have electricity from my storage from my solar. And then we're seeing all across the country, energy bills are going up, and we're all going to see increases. Unfortunately, that's our reality. Well, me having solar means that that my energy cost will be a lot less because I'll be generating my own energy from the sun shining on my roof. And then sometimes I can even give my solar energy back to the grid, and then I'll get money from Duke Energy because I'm giving my energy that I've got through my solar panels back to the grid. So I will just try and say those common sense reasons for why it makes sense to me without trying to like shame someone or push my opinion on them. And the other thing we do is we don't always labor the point of climate change. So I will have people who are outright deny climate change to me at a table, and there's literally no point trying to persuade them. So I'll normally like ask them, like, tell me why you feel like that. I'm really curious. Some people will tell you, even then, some people are super suspicious. Like, they still think you're trying to back them into a corner. So I will just say, I think where we can agree is that we all want clean water. We all want clean air. So if, from my perspective, solutions for climate change give you and your family clean air and clean water, like, that's just something to think about. Like, who loves pollution? No one goes around saying they love pollution. So just like think about it from that perspective. And I'm often like, of course, it's frustrating for me to hear people like dismiss an issue that is on my mind like all the time. But I also think like it's much more effective to just plant a seed of a different perspective for them, and then they can take it away and think about it. And you never know, like maybe they'll get curious and look up some of the things that I was saying.
Yeah, and I mean, and I can tell you from the work that I do with merger strategies and working with companies to make the business case for sustainability, I have worked with companies who do not care that putting solar on their roof is going to reduce their carbon footprint, but saw the obvious benefits to reducing their operating expenses. Mm-hmm. Same outcome, right? It's like, okay, well, look, like this, we know that energy costs are rising. You can hedge that risk, right? You can make your business more resilient than knowing that those prices are going to increase. This is going to reduce your costs, and then if you own the building, it makes a ton of sense. On the flip side of that, I've had people who exclusively did it to reduce their footprint, and then were pleasantly surprised that how much their energy bill was reduced. And that's obviously a factor, but their motivation was different. So it's I think that it's really smart to talk about, well, here's what I think we can agree on, right? Nobody wants higher utility bill, and everyone likes clean air and clean water. So solar is a good solution for that, right? Reduce your costs, reduce pollution, cleaner air. It's a good solution. So anyway, that's me on my soapbox for a minute. Um, so now I want to talk a little bit about a little bit about building political will. So Citizen Climate Lobby talks about relationships as the key to influencing Congress. How does media and storytelling fit into that relationship building process?
So something that all congressional offices do is they either have a clipping service, or they have they themselves are looking through local media where they have their constituency to see when their name comes up. So I encourage our volunteers, when they're doing their media work, to always mention the member of Congress by name with their call to action of what they want the member of Congress to do. So the media is doing two things. You have a platform to educate people or give people a different thing to think about. But you're also thinking about that audience of one, that member of Congress. And if you mention them, it's printed, it's going to ultimately end up on their desk or the staffer's desk. And we've seen this be successful. So we had one volunteer printed an opinion column in their state asking their member of Congress to support a bill. They got a phone call from a staffer from the office saying, can you come in and talk to me about this bill? So that speaks for itself. So media work is so important. And the other thing is, I don't think that the media really right now talks about climate change enough. There's a fear that it's too partisan. But we need the media, meteorologists, journalists. We need them to be making the climate connection, because it's vitally important, and that they're trusted messengers in their community, particularly meteorologists. There's some really interesting data that shows so many jobs and things are partisan, to the left or the right, but meteorologists across the spectrum are trusted communicators to their communities.
Yeah.
So if a meteorologist who obviously understands the science can see how climate change connects to extreme weather and how it makes it worse, if they can just occasionally talk about it, same with journalists who are covering stories, just have that one sentence to mention how there's a connection, that is really going to help to get people to understand that this is real. It is something that we're seeing, and then perhaps they want to take action on it.
Yeah, interesting. Those are that's pretty wild. Just getting that mentioned, like that example, and then got a phone call from the office, or that's really cool. And I mean, I think that's what's necessary right now. The more of that, and that's specifically what y'all are helping people do, right? I mean, you're helping them write those op-eds and share their stories, right?
Yeah, that's what I do all the time. So we have regular trainings where I will spend an hour with volunteers and I'll teach them, and I actually get them to write during my letter to the editor session. So I do this workshop where they come to the call, we do a quick training, we have a discussion about what people want to write about, and then I tell them to mute themselves and turn off their cameras for 20 minutes. So they write their letter to the editor during that time. And then we come back before the end of the call and we talk about how people got on. Anyone who wants to share can share, but it's very motivating. And every month we see letters to the editor printed from people who've been in that session, which is really cool. That's
awesome. I don't know if you can share this or not, but if you were to do a 1 minute abbreviated training, what are some of the takeaways or advice that you give in a training for people, some of the just high level stuff?
Okay, so I would say, if you're thinking about a letter to the editor, you want to make it either this may not be a minute, but I'll do my best. Either peg it off something you've seen in the paper, or like talk about something that affects the community. So it's like last week, Duke Energy asked us to conserve energy because of the heat to prevent a blackout. Then like next paragraph would be like explaining why this is an issue. Our energy needs are growing. You could put in the climate connection. You don't necessarily have to. You can still make a valid point that helps with communicating on climate without mentioning climate. Then I would put in the call to action. So clean energy permitting reform is needed because we need to speed up that infrastructure to ensure that we can move energy from A to B. Also, efficient energy is cheaper for us all. Mention the member of Congress by name, how you want them to take action, then kind of like close the circle. So go back to the beginning of the letter about, what the first point you made, maybe blackouts or something, I want to ensure that the lights stay on, like something clever like that to finish it off. Very
good. Those are some good tips for anyone who wants to write a letter to the editor. But if you want the real deal, you'll have to sign up with Charlotte and CCL and do a training. Where can folks get information on getting trained and doing some work with CCL?
So they could go to cclusa.org. That's our website. You can join there. Once you join, you will be connected with your local chapter. So someone who is in upstate South Carolina, I would get an email to tell me they've joined. You also get invited to an introductory call about CCL and our policy areas. That's really useful. That's like an hour. It just gives you an overview on Zoom of all our work and how we do our work. And then when you're a new member, you do actually get an invite to my LTE workshop. So once you sign up, you'll get an email from me saying, come join me for my letter writing workshop.
Cool. All right. Well, it sounds like I need to, I'm embarrassed to say if I'm signed up or not. I don't know if I did. It was a few years ago. Yeah. I think it was a few years ago.
Yeah. But I'm going to get you into my next lobby meeting, Rick, for sure.
Yeah. I'm sign me up for that for sure. And so I mentioned this kind of before our call, but we're kind of coming up at the top of the hour here. One of the things that I try and do with this podcast is also shine a light on what gives people hope about everything that's happening, right? It can be, from kind of the world I live in and working with fishing and outdoor brands. Right now, there's a lot going on with our public lands, and there's a lot going on with renewable energy tax credits and all sorts of stuff like that. So it can be a little negative, I guess. So I like to try and wrap the episode with what gives you hope, or is there a story or anything that you could share that sort of gives you hope about climate action, and I'll let you go from there.
So I mentioned earlier the hunting and fishing event that I did in upstate South Carolina. Well, they didn't have one this year, unfortunately, but the last 2 years consistently, we ask people for their opinion on climate change. And we always say, there's no wrong answer. Like, if you're dismissive of it, you don't think it's real, tell us that. And we get people to put pins on a chart with their alarmed, concerned, all the way through to not thinking it's a problem at all. Well, consistently, that the number of alarmed grows. And that really is wonderful for me, because I think there's this opinion that like more conservative folks aren't concerned, they're not interested in doing something about climate change. And I would challenge that that's completely not true, because you've upstate South Carolina, very rural hunting and fishing show. That's a more conservative audience that we're meeting. And they expressed to me their concern. And it was like something like over 80% of folks there had some level of concern about climate change. So that really brings me hope. And it's kind of just a communication problem. That's why we've all got to talk about it, because folks are there. We just need them to know that their neighbor's there too, and their friends there, and like, it's fine to talk about it. And the other thing that gives me hope is when I moved here, so obviously I do not have a South Carolina accent. I'm from the UK originally, but when I moved here 7 years ago, people were like, you can't talk about climate change here. And I was kind of like, okay, challenge accepted.
Yeah.
I've always talked about it. And I've seen members of Congress go from not even agreeing that climate change is like human influenced to actually talking about legislation that will help. So there is hope. The trajectory all over the world is clean energy, is more efficient, it's cheaper, it's growing. So regardless of the peaks and troughs we have in the USA of the action we take, the horse is bolted. You know, it's already happening. So that gives me hope.
Love that. Well, Charlotte, thank you so much. I know that we have known each other for a few years, and I always read your opinion pieces because you write some stuff in the Post and Courier. So thank you for everything that you do and everything that CCL does to engage everyday people to advocate for better climate policy. I think it's extremely important, and I'm looking forward to getting more involved.
Thanks, Rick. Well, I'm grateful for the work you do too. And yes, you'll be hearing from me about our next lobby meeting.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Charlotte.
All right.
All right. Well, special thanks to Charlotte for all she does for climate action. And if you're an angler concerned about the impact of climate change wherever you live, I would strongly encourage you to get involved with Citizens Climate Lobby and contact your elected officials and share your story with them. Thanks for listening to the Sustainable Angler podcast. If you like what you're hearing, please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. It's a chance to tell me what you like about the show and helps others discover it too. Thanks for listening.